So I guess have you seen any of my other
I have
videos?
not. No, no, no.
Yeah, that's why you're here. I'm just like everybody else. I'm just starting out, so the video quality, the editing, if you can call it that.
No, dude, I do what you got to do, man. So I get it.
So I think you reached out to me
I did.
back in, I want to say February, March.
Yeah, I think so. It was shortly after. I think it was because I found your blog, and so
Mm.
that was like, oh, I really need to reach out to him. So yeah, I think it was probably then, right before. I guess it was right before it was for the Gutter South. That was in
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because I was trying to think if it was. I almost emailed you when Folk Magic came out, but I was like, well, we've got some more stuff coming up, so I can hit him in that round. So
Yeah, and I'd like to get your input on that. Why do you think so many bands are releasing singles and not going to the EP? Or I really am curious.
gotcha. Sorry, my dog is barking in the background.
Ah,
I think some of
bring the dog in front.
I'm like, I don't know what you're barking about, bro. But no, I think that some of it, I mean, I guess I could speak from my own experience. I don't want to speak for other bands. I think it's some of the marketing that we get kind of fed maybe on some social medias of like how to release music. And so
Oh,
it's more of a business thing, I think, a little bit like a business marketing tactic for bands to do, for independent bands to do, where you kind of have something to talk about on your socials or whatever. So I think that's some of it too, and then it kind of gives you to get the hop to an EP, at least for us, because we didn't have a full length. So it
right.
was like if we drop one song, and then we can drop another one, and then we can drop the entire thing, which wasn't much more, but it was just to kind of help build hype around what was coming out. So,
Does it work?
I mean, I think it's worked for us. We're three. I mean, I don't think that we're not a huge band, but I feel like it's what we have worked, like it's helped us get to where we are, I think is where, and I think that's really hard for bands, especially in the digital age, to just kind of grasp how to make it
Yeah.
work and stuff. So,
Yeah. Well, and you didn't exactly write top 40
no.
material. we'll get we'll get there. Um, so some of us older folks have a hard time wrapping our heads around what you're not releasing an album,
Yeah.
and because we see band after band releasing a single on YouTube, and that's it. They're not even going through Bandcamp or
Yeah.
anything. So some of my fellow bloggers and writers are like, eh. So they're not paying attention to it in some cases. And I'm like, I'm a boomer, right? Which means everything I think is wrong. So whatever a boomer is going to think, I'm going to do the opposite. So I started leaning in to some local bands around here, Evil Leaf, Mean Green, who love those
Yeah.
guys. You need to hook up
I
with Mean
think
Green.
we might have exchanged some messages, I think, recently. I think it was those guys. So,
You two switching off from Headliner on it would be just mind blowing because you have such similar roots,
nice.
but a completely different take. And I'm gonna be all over the
No,
place.
you're good.
So we don't know how to handle the single releases, and I'm like, oh no, this is a real thing
I mean, I guess
because
some of it I think too is like would technically what defines a single though? Because like wouldn't that make Sleep's album a single?
right,
You know,
good point.
especially in this
And
genre too. Like there could be bands that could drop singles that are 10, 15 minutes long, and some of those like more drony stuff. You know,
oh, you mean like Bellwitch's
yeah,
last
just
album?
like you know. So
I look at that and it's like, okay, I love Bellwitch, but another hour, and really another hour.
well,
I think it's longer than that.
and that's kind of like with us is I came from like a punk rock background, so I don't know. I don't. That's why our songs aren't like super drawn out. Like I don't feel like we dig into that as much as some others do.
I notice, and I think folk music, which you open the EP with, is actually your longest song.
Yeah, it is. But there's also a lot of extra in that too. With like some of the stuff that's going on.
Well, I love the beginning, how, are my headphones working? And I'll play a clip for the audience right now. I think it's a great opening, and it caught me completely off guard.
Gotcha.
And you leaned heavily into the acoustic at the beginning, and it sounds like one particular song from like 1971. I think it came out. What one am I referring to?
I'm assuming you're talking about Smoke on the Water, but I don't know.
It's great. Dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun. And then you don't take it there. And was that deliberate or accidental?
So I knew that this comes back to the single release. So I understand with a single sometimes, I'll tie this back, but that it's like just a preview. Like we didn't really know what was going to come out for Gutter South for the EP, so we dropped Folk Magic like it was its own thing. And so that's why there is that like acoustic guitar stuff that's in there. Because I think, at least for me, I wanted it to be like a standalone, like by itself if we needed it to.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where some of that other stuff came into. But I also wanted to tie back to like acoustic music and like folk music too. So there was that intent of like it's intentional. Like I wanted to have the acoustic stuff. I thought it adds depth to the parts where it actually shines at. And so yeah, that was kind of, I mean, I guess a hearkening back to where we're from in some extent.
Yeah, and were you trying to drive us boomers crazy with half of that progression? But then it kicks in. It has such a modern groove to it. And before I start, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Can you name off your top three influences? Like if you're gonna go for lock yourself away in the woodshed somewhere, who are you listening to?
Let's see, top three. So first would be Lucero from Memphis, Tennessee. Second would be Jeezy, the rapper. I can listen to Jeezy all day long. And then third would probably be Hank Williams. I like a lot of old Hank stuff. Hold on. I'll take it back because I'm going to want something aggressive. I'm probably going to go Minor Threat. Like that would, yeah. Yeah. That would be my, because like I love all of Minor Threat's stuff, everything that Minor Threat put out. Those few 7-inches are like detrimental to me for sure. Like my music progression.
So you don't walk around listening to Weed Eater 24/7?
I don't. I love Weed Eater, but I don't do that now.
You really, did you deliberately channel Dixie and the Boys on this?
Well, So when I started the band with the first drummer, that was our intent to start a Weed Eater-esque band for sure. And I think that some of that is still shining through to where we're at right now, but I think what we put out next is going to deviate from a little bit more from that. Like I think we're starting to find our own lane, but yes, definitely Weed Eater is a influence on the band 100%.
Wait, you don't think you found your own lane with?
I mean, I feel like we have our lane, but I don't know. I don't know if we're distinguishable enough. So
Okay, yeah, and I remember when we were. I think when you saw my write up, you thought I was probably going off the rails. The guitar playing in this album and the banjo, right?
yeah.
Interlude might be my favorite song.
Uh,
I love Interlude and where it comes in. The musicianship on this, I think I used the word amazing. I used amazing way too much. I did a little short. I think I squeezed amazing in 4 times. It's mind blowing to me what you've accomplished. Are you still a 2-piece?
yeah. So that's just me on the interlude. All of that is the banjo, the acoustic guitar, and we don't play that one live. Obviously, it's just part of the album. But that was also intentional. Essentially, that banjo is pretty much the folk magic riff just on banjo, and then there's just
Right,
an acoustic
right.
guitar underneath, and then it's there to segue into Feast of Snakes. That's the purpose of the Bible quote that I read in there at the end. So
Okay, Feast of Snakes. Um, some lyrics in there like really jump out at you, kind of like a snake. What are you trying to tell us with that song in particular?
um, so I wrote the song. The name is based off of a book by this author Harry Crews, and the song has nothing really to do with the book at all. I just thought that was a sick name for a song. I was like, Feast of Snakes is a
I love
sick
that.
name. And so I just had that idea, but then I kind of flipped it where it was like anti-authoritarian, I guess, in some extent. Like Feast of Kings, like Feast of Snakes. I don't know. I feel like politicians are snakes sometimes. Um, but then also, it's just, maybe there's like authority over yourself. Like, like I don't know, because like at the end, I'm like, to live in bliss, kill your ego, like just ego
Hmm.
death, and
Hmm.
like maybe it's just like killing that ego. I don't know. I don't know.
Is that some of the Minor Threat influence, you think?
Uh, I mean, potentially, maybe, yeah, definitely
I
definitely.
told you, I read something into everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely some of the like punk stuff that I grew up on 100%. So not grew up on, that I discovered when I was a teenager. I wouldn't say grew up on.
Dope Scum as a whole, is this still a two
Yep.
piece?
Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, it's just me and Scott, my drummer. On Folk Magic, my friend Todd from Stone Man played bass on that song for the recordings, but we haven't. We've always been just a 2-piece, just me and a drummer. Scott's been in the band for about a year, a little over a year now. So
What do you have against bass players?
I always joke that our van only has 2 seats, so that's why we're a 2-piece. But I don't know, man. It was like at the time when I started the band, I didn't know a lot of folks in town, and so I just knew a drummer, and that's kind of how it started. And then it's easier to go on the road with 2 people, man. Like it's just easier to do some of the stuff, which I have no beef with bass players. I think it would add a ton to us. On the record, the bass playing outside of Folk Magic is me, so I'm just pretty much playing the guitar riffs. But um,
Yeah, and you're using guitar and then you split your signal?
yeah, at live setting, yeah. So I split my signal. I have one that's kind of like my guitar tone, and then another one that's like a heavier. It's like bass is real boosted, and it's essentially a bass amp because it's a PV215.
Right on. I love it. Plus, you don't have to wait. Bass players are notorious for being late. They don't really know how to play their instrument.
Well, if there
Um,
would be ever
it,
be one that I mean, it would probably be Todd, my friend Todd that I was talking about from Stone Man. He would
okay.
definitely get the first swing at it if he wanted to, if there was going to be a bass player. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting a little old, but I tell you what, you end up around here, might need to see if I can squeeze in an audition
Yeah,
with you.
we'll just start going from town to town, having different bass players play with us. That would be sick, though. That'd be pretty badass.
That'd be a good gimmick,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
I mean, I'll be like full on. Scott, my drummer, he might like be a little hesitant. He gets like, he's like, when I try to throw wrenches in there, but I'd be like, fuck it, let's go. Just like 5 shows with 5 different bass players and just some weird shit. I mean, again, like back to some of the more like digital marketing and stuff. Like you kind of got to do shit like that to get attention. Like people start talking about stuff, you know. I think it was Gel. I don't know if you're familiar with the hardcore band Gel. It's either Gel or Spy. I don't know which one. They did like a live show at a Sonic drive-in. Like they just set up outside, and so like that's how they like got a ton of publicity from that. And I was like, that's sick.
Oh, so there's Gorilla went and
Yeah,
set up?
yeah. Like it was like guerrilla
Yeah.
style, like at the Sonic, and it was like all their friends and then all of them, and they just played this like hardcore show.
Speaking of which, before we go on, you have a certain band's shirt
I do.
on, and I'd like to give them a
I
shout out.
have the Slow Attack shirt on. They're the homies here in Chattanooga. They're awesome.
You know, I had no idea that you two were close. Although when I looked, it's like, oh, they're from a similar area. Their album, holy shit.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, Husky, Brian, their guitar player, singer, he's been doing it for a long time, man. Just playing music and stuff, and I looked up to him, and so like when I moved to Chattanooga, I just got to get to know them because Chattanooga's a small town, especially whenever you start getting into a little more underground music in the scene and stuff,
Right.
and so it's like we kind of start meeting everybody, and with them being local, it's easy for us to put on a show with us. It fits, and so yeah, I mean, like I was texting him yesterday about just random shit, so.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I definitely, and I'm talking about them because I would love to get them on here. That their album, both of you guys, back to back.
I'll make the connect.
Okay,
just
man.
tell me. Like I'll get them on there. I'm serious. I'll talk.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be awesome. Okay, so tell us a little bit about. So your name is Dope Scum. So I can tell you're shooting for the wide audience, probably 13 to 16-year-old female demographic.
Yeah, that's our demo.
Mostly urban, mostly urban, and mostly going to dance clubs. Is there a story behind Dope Scum other than soap? I want to know.
Actually, so there is. This will be the first time I think I've told anybody this outside of like friends, but
I won't tell anyone.
yeah, nobody's gonna know. So the drummer that I was mentioning that started the band with me, him and I went to high school together. We actually, my very first band, I played guitar in, and he played drums. We were like a street punk band, kinda like a street punk / hardcore punk, 80s hardcore punk band. But so we kind of had separate lives, and then we just kind of wound up converging back. Anyways, him and I were also in another band that we started with one of our friends called Scum Angels. And so I was like, dude, what if we just call ourselves Dope Scum? And so I was just like, that was kind of where it came from, because it was like, oh, look, we're a sludge stoner band. Like, let's just put that in front of Scum. And then, so where that band's name came from, though, was from, I think it's Finding Nemo. There's a starfish that's like, because we had to watch Finding Nemo all the time in high school. And so there's a scene where the starfish is on the, like, they clog up the aquarium or some shit, and he's like, look, I'm making scum angels. Like, that's what he says. And so essentially Dope Scum is based off of that, of Finding Nemo quote, I guess.
That's hilarious.
So, yeah.
Okay, folks, remember, you heard that here
First.
on Clean and Sober Stoner.
But then I think it's also, too, like, I kind of joke that it's like, is it double entendre when it has multiple meanings? So, like, obviously there's, like, Dope Scum, like, oh, haha, the weed stuff. But then there's also, like, Dope Scum.
Right.
You know, like, I don't know, because I'm working class from the South. I feel like just kind of ties into, I guess, some of the album stuff and where some of the stuff comes from. But it's just, like, I don't know, I feel like we were kind of looked at as like scum of the earth type of shit by some people.
So there's about 4 or 5 different meanings
Yeah.
because you've got a line. I don't remember which song, and I
No, you're fine.
apologize, but I think you're referring directly to meth crisis
Mhm.
or methamphetamine being used, and being a counselor, and in recovery. It's like, ooh, whoa, what are they talking about? So how bad is it where you're at?
Um, Now, no, I don't think it's meth now, but what that song is based off of at that time period, that was what the like was going around. I mean, meth is essentially like poor white people's crack. Um, so
Right.
yeah, and that's, I mean, I grew up in a really rural small town, so it was just there. You just kind of knew like such and such is on that shit. That's kind of what they would know. Nobody would say meth and stuff, and then uh, yeah, I mean, I remember vividly being around meth addicts.
We're a lot of fun, aren't we?
I mean, most of them weren't that bad. Um, but yeah, that song is based off my uncle, who's like bounced back and forth essentially between drugs, different drug addictions, and getting sober and then not, and relapsing and stuff. And I don't know, he really didn't have a good support system growing up. So yeah, nonetheless, I'll be in here having a therapy session with you.
Oh, the name of the channel is. So so what I'm hearing is it's not really that bad right now. This is based on past
Yeah,
experience and
that was
growing
based
up.
off of like past experience. I mean, I know like here in Chattanooga, that like fentanyl is like kind of the thing to be scared of. I guess, to test strips and stuff. But uh, yeah, I don't really know that drug scene. That's not my thing. I try to stay away from anything harder than CBD.
So I took a because I thought, oh my god, this is an important album. Appalachia, that part of the country, pretty downtrodden economically. And by the way, I love being shown that I'm wrong. That's why I do these, because as a writer, I don't know. Do you ever read other bloggers or writers?
Uh, I'll be honest, I mostly just listen to music all the time. Like it's like constantly
Okay,
listening to
good for you.
music.
Because one thing, a lot of us do, and I fall prey to it, is we start injecting our own opinion, our own point of view, um, yeah, our shit, into other people's music. We read far too much into it, and then our writing reflects this bias. And I like to take that on head on. So good. So Gutter South again. Dope Scum, Gutter South. It did not come across to me like somewhere over the rainbow.
I mean, I don't think it is. I think that's kind of some of the stuff that I'm like trying to bring to light too, I guess, is just, I don't know. Like I'm not sitting. I love being from the South and I love Appalachia. Like it has its problems and shit, and I think it's mostly because of exploitation, uh, like from the workers. But um, yeah, I mean, like when you were asking, like I know pills were really bad for a long time, but
Hmm.
again, I think, which is still, I mean, like I don't live in the rural area that I used to, so I'm in the city now, so meth doesn't get talked about as much as it did when I was growing up. But I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, man. I don't. But back to kind of what you were saying, like what with the biases and stuff is like I have this tendency to not realize that people didn't really grow up like I did. Like my life, like growing
Okay.
up is not the
Okay.
norm, and so like what I think is not that bad could be like horrendous to other people. like,
I,
so.
how are things economically where you're at?
Uh, Chattanooga's getting gentrified and like it's kind of gross, but um, I mean things are fine for me. But I'm and most of my like I don't really have any friends that are talking about that things are bad. Much. I mean like there's the grocery stuff and whatever that people talk about, but yeah, most of my friend group too are okay, like financially, I guess, but I think again, what our standards are may be different than others.
I hear you on that. Well, good. I'm glad to hear all that. Now I can just put the album on. By the way, it's got a great groove. Everything about it's pretty aggressive. So I'm not totally off base, but it's got this great groove with this real edgy sound.
Thank you.
And even though I'm a bass player, I think a good part of it is obviously the guitar playing, but you're a drummer. He is so good.
Yeah, Scott carries a lot of musical weight, I think. He is a phenomenal drummer. Actually, the slow attack Husky, Scott plays, Husky does the thing that's like a blues thing, the singer and guitarist from the slow attack. And Scott, my drummer, played with that 3-piece for a little while too, with them. And so, yeah, it was a transplant, kind of like me. And, like he loves a lot of jazz. Like that's kind of, on top of like liking heavier music. But I think that's, I'm not going to try to derail, but I think that's some of the distinction that makes us, that you were talking about. Like we kind of have I think our own lane is the differences that Scott brings and the differences that I bring outside of like liking heavy music.
That's a really good answer, by the way. Really impressed. A few things about his playing. It's very musical.
Mm-hmm.
He's not just smashing all the cymbals and making noise, which it can tend to happen, but there's a lot of, I don't know, deftness to what he's doing. He's not just, ham-fisting those sticks.
It's funny. It's funny that you say that, because whenever he plays with us, he's like, I get to do like caveman grip. And then it's like, what are you doing on the other basis, man? Like, are you just like, he actually, I mean, again, Scott is amazing. But there's like this thing in Chattanooga called Soundcore, and they like do stuff with musicians, and they have a program where you can set up on the bridge that's here in town that goes across the Tennessee River, and you can just play. And Scott has like a little bebop kit that he takes out there and plays it just by himself. I'm like, I couldn't do that on drums. I could maybe just strum on guitar out there, but nah, drums, I feel like it's so, I don't know, there's something about it. But he is hands down one of the best drummers that I've played with. And I have actually had the luxury of, most of the drummers that I've played with have been phenomenal drummers, really good drummers. So, but Scott he's good. He's good.
He is. And you two are very good together. Okay, so what's next for Dope Scum? Are we looking at Gutter North?
No, we haven't. We've got I have some songs kind of written. Me and Scott got to sit down and just hash them out between the two of us. But as far as, I guess, more recent stuff, we do have some dates lined up in the Southeast for that release, for the Gutter South release. So that's coming in the more immediate future. We'll probably drop another single in the fall if I had to guess, but
we have to wait till fall?
Probably, yeah. Well, because we won't be able to get to the studio. Because I have a full-time job and Scott is a full-time student currently. So,
excuses,
yeah, adult shit. So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what we've talked about for the most part. I haven't come up with what the next. I have an idea of what I think I want to call the next release, but I'm still working it out.
From what I can see, the album's been moderately successful. Is that in line with?
I mean, it's the best thing that I've put out personally. So, yeah, I feel like people are digging it. I think it's, I guess, I mean, maybe I keep circling back to this. I mean, maybe we have kind of found our lane. I feel like this release kind of is just, no pun intended, like just the tip. But like, I don't know, like, I think what we put out next will be a lot, like, not better, but just different and like Dope Scum. Like, I think that's what was going to kind of define us, to be that next one. But yeah, back to what I was going to say is, I feel like your second release gets a lot more love, because like a lot of bands can put out something, but then it's the second one that's like, okay, you stayed around, you weren't just a COVID band, you know, like you stayed around, you put something else out, you played some shows, like you're not just, you know, like you're actually trying to do the damn thing. So I think that's also some of it too, is like we've got a little bit more time behind us and just releases and stuff like that. So yeah, but we've definitely gotten more publicity with this one than we did our first EP for sure.
So you have some gigs coming up. Where are you playing?
Currently we have, and these places are not in any old particular order. Atlanta, obviously we're going to play in Chattanooga. We have Memphis, Johnson City, Knoxville, Asheville, pretty much Greenville, South Carolina. I think that's it right now. And we're trying to get either a Birmingham or Huntsville date and potentially a Little Rock date.
That's a big swath.
Yeah, we're not going to do it all in one run. It's going to be broken up, but just like 3-day runs there and back, essentially. Like Little Rock is out there. Memphis will be a drive, but that's probably the furthest out that we're going to be Memphis.
Well, I guarantee if you ever make it around the Raleigh area, I'll definitely be hankering.
But yeah, so I mean, I don't know, it might happen, maybe, we'll see. There's one date that I'm still trying to shop to different places, and so when we play Johnson City, I debated on maybe coming out that way. Not that far, but Charlotte.
Yeah, Charlotte gets all the great ones. That's just.
But Raleigh is not off the radar for us. It would just have to be a longer run than what we're doing right now. But yeah, I think we're trying to be calculated and to some extent because we do have like outside of Dope Scum, like we have like lives. At least my goal with Dope Scum is to be like a regional kind of bass band. Like, I don't know, man. Like I said, I love the South. Even with this bad shit, there's beautiful things about it. So.
I can't blame it. So, do you think the next album will reflect more of that beauty?
Nah. It doesn't. The songs that I have written right now, I mean, there's still some stuff that is gonna be like Southern, but it won't be. Nah, it won't be. I don't write happy songs really. It's always gonna be.
Good for you. It's called Stoner Doom.
Yeah. But I also don't feel like we're like that doomy. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base, but I don't feel like my lyrics are like super like Satan or whatever. I don't know what they sing about.
Oh, thank God. By the way, and that's what struck me about your music. It was more reality based, a little on the grim side. But yeah, the occult stuff, I love it.
Yeah.
You know, for Blood Ceremony comes out with an album. Yeah, I love it, but some things do get over.
Well, that was like
okay, dude.
Folk Magic. Oh, sorry. Well, I was gonna say with Folk Magic, it was like that's occulty, but it's also like Southern based, like it's based in Appalachia, you know. So
yeah, so you've got the occasional doll at places, and then hexes, and then certain something buried under the porch to keep people away. It's folk magic. Yeah. Everybody does that.
Yeah, everyone does that, right? Again, that's one of those. No, that's not the norm, is it?
Oh, it kind of is. One way or the other, because we could get into a whole religious discussion. How about I not get canceled? And well, dude, I definitely have. I've enjoyed the hell out of talking to you. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you kind of wanted to talk about?